So episode 6 of the Americas is called The Gulf Coast, and it's about the southern ends of the southern states of the United States of America. So considering we had an episode about Canada and Alaska, an episode dedicated to basically the top half of South America and the Amazon, the fact that we've got an episode that's dealing with a very small part of the US does kind of feel a little bit like we're taking the piss a little bit. Does this whole region need an episode dedicated to it? Probably not. Could they have mashed this into some of the more Central American countries? Because they're basically the same habitat. Probably. But no, this episode opens up with black bears. So black bears are pretty widespread across the Americas. But for some reason, I do kind of think of them as living in swamps for some reason. You don't see them living there very often. We basically see a mother leaving her cubs to go swimming to find food. The bear swimming was actually quite cool. It's not an image that you see very often. And the bit with the cub looked like it was dead was pretty horrific. I kind of felt like that sequence was a little bit unnecessary. The cub looked dead, but then it's like, oh, but is it dead? And then it moves. It was definitely a little bit kind of like manipulating the audience, which I'm not against necessarily, but I did kind of feel like it was a little bit unnecessary. Overall, that sequence was cool. It was more for seeing the bear swimming, but no, it was still alright. Then we see alligators, so obviously you're not going to have an episode about this region without talking about alligators. They are basically the symbol of the southern states, and the alligators were cool actually. It was really cool seeing them do something different. They did actually talk about the alligators quite a bit, like how they were once endangered and now they're doing alright. And the mother looking after her young was really cool, because crocodilians used to be pretty well known for looking after their young, but we'd never really see it anymore. We used to see it a lot. I feel like you used to get a lot of sequences of crocodiles or alligators or caimans looking after their young, and I think the last time we saw that might have been in Life in Cold Blood, which came out in 2008. So quite a while ago. So it was actually nice to see that type of behaviour again. And I don't think we'd seen it in alligators before, so that was cool. So yeah, actually, to be honest, I like that. That was definitely a worthwhile sequence. Considering there had to be an alligator sequence in here, I'm glad we got that, and I'm glad it was actually as in-depth as that, so that was quite cool as well. Then we talk about how it rains so much there. We see all these caves. Considering it rains a lot in the southern states, particularly Florida, where most of this episode is set, most of the people don't actually use the rainwater for their water, they actually get it from underground caves. So it's cool seeing that. I did feel like we'd already seen this already in the Mexico episode. I know it's a different cave, but we still saw cave stuff. I do like cave stuff, to be fair, but I kind of feel like, okay, I've seen this before. The axolotl hunting as well, that was cool, but again, it was fine. And overall, I'd say that was like another bit of this episode that maybe felt a little bit like, did we need it? Probably not. And then we see manatees, again, the other animal that's famous for living in the south. And again, this was cool. Again, seeing the manatees just interacting was nice. The footage of the manatees was great. I don't think it was anything miraculous, like we have seen better manatee footage, but to be honest, it was just nice seeing them. So I did enjoy that, and it's one of the things I will think of more when I think of this episode, I think. So I did enjoy that quite a bit. And then we move south to the Everglades. I feel like there's a lot of animals you could focus on there, but here we focus on the Florida apple snail. I can't say I've seen this before in a series. I think of all the animals out there, snails are probably among the ones that are the hardest to turn into protagonists of sequences. I think they're just kind of minging. But here I think they did a good job. You basically see this mother snail, she's having to scale these grass stems to lay her eggs. They have to be laid out of the water. But there's these black snail kites that go around, and they just eat the snails. So obviously they have to get away from them. And to do that, they just basically drop off and sink to the bottom of the water. Quite interesting. I mean, that's quite a good survival technique. And again, you did feel the tension, probably more than a lot of sequences in this episode. That was really cool. So I actually did like that quite a bit. It was probably one of the highlights of the episode for me. And then we see burrowing owls in some of the towns of Florida. That was nice. Again, burrowing owls are always cool to see. This was definitely one of the more in-depth looks at burrowing owls that I've ever seen, because usually you just see them in the background, like something else is stealing their burrow. But I'm glad that they focused on them quite a bit, especially watching how they've adapted to urban habitats. That was quite interesting. And then we talked about rising sea levels. Of all the regions of North America, this is the part that's going to be the most affected by climate change, because there's all these little islands off the coast of Florida that will soon no longer exist if sea levels rise. So that was really interesting. I like how they did talk about that. And then the kind of final bit of footage was about ocelots. This very tiny population of ocelots that live in one of the islands. They weren't really doing anything too amazing. They were just wandering around. But one did have cubs. That was cool. Again, I feel like I've seen ocelots before, but to be honest, I can't think of ever seen a really in-depth look at them, so this might have been the most in-depth. They talked about how this was a massive threat to this population, but it's still cool. It's still a shame if they do go, so I did like that. And that's how we end the episode. So this episode was alright. I did enjoy it. However, I will say, I don't know if we needed an episode about this habitat. We could have definitely lumped some of this footage in another episode that maybe would have given a greater idea of Central America. I feel like we're not going to get a great Central American episode, or at least one that will just cover like massive amounts of countries, whereas this was obviously a very small part of the United States. I feel like there's definitely a bias to the United States in this series, which I guess is fair because it's an American production. But I guess if someone who's not from the United States or North America in general, I do kind of feel like there was maybe more areas they could have focused on a little bit more. Obviously, the United States is a massive country and it's got a lot of different habitats, but I kind of feel like half the episodes in this series are going to be about the US. and the rest of the Americas is going to get shafted a little bit. I think the highlights of the episode for me were probably the snail and the alligators. I did enjoy most of the stuff in it though, to be fair. The manatees were cool, and I liked the bear swimming, that was quite cool as well. So yeah, this episode was alright, to be fair. As much as I've moaned about it, I did enjoy it overall. So yeah, what did you think of this episode? Do you think the same as me? What were your highlights? Let me know in the comments below. As ever, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, or don't if you don't want to, it's perfectly fine. I'll be doing the next one next week, whatever it is, who knows. And I'll see you then, and goodbye.